There is something nobody tells you about helping a child with disorganized attachment. The usual parenting method and advice do not work the same way. More warmth can feel threatening to this child. Firm limits can feel like abandonment. Even love, expressed in ordinary ways, can produce a response that baffles you. Because the child you are trying to reach has learned something that no child should ever have to learn. That the person who is supposed to make them feel safe is the same person who makes them feel afraid. That is the wound at the center of disorganized attachment. Not a wound from absence, not a wound from inconsistency alone, but a wound from the most specific and disorienting kind of confusion a nervous system can carry. The alarm fired, and the safe person was already in the room. There was nowhere to go. Today, I am not going to give you a list of strategies. I am going to show you 3 ordinary moments, scenes that happen in real homes, on real days, and what they look like before a parent understands disorganized attachment, and what they look like after. Because the shift that helps this child most is not a technique. It is an understanding. And understanding changes everything about how you show up in the room. Scene 1. The moment of distress before. Your child falls. Not badly, a scraped knee, a bruised palm, the kind of hurt that should produce a brief cry and a quick comfort. You move toward them. And something strange happens. They look at you and then look away. They seem to freeze for a second. Then they either push you away when you try to hold them, or they cling so tightly and so desperately that the intensity itself feels alarming. Neither response fits the size of what just happened. You do not know what to do. You try to comfort them, and something in the interaction feels wrong on both sides. What is actually happening? The child's attachment system activated exactly as it was designed to. They were hurt, the alarm fired, reach for safety. But somewhere in their history, reaching for safety and experiencing fear became linked. The caregiver was both the comfort and the source of the threat. Not always, not with intention, but often enough that the nervous system built an association it cannot now easily undo. Research shows that children with disorganized attachment display the highest levels of internalizing and externalizing behavior problems of any attachment group. When distress arrives, their system has no organized strategy to run, so it either shuts down or it floods. After. You have stopped trying to fix the intensity of the moment. You do not rush toward them urgently. You do not pull back when they push you away. You move slowly. You lower yourself to their level. You stay close without crowding. And you say something simple. Not a question, not a command, just a statement of presence. I am right here. Take your time. And then you wait. You do not fill the silence with reassurance. You do not interpret the push away as rejection. You understand that the push away and the clinging are the same thing. A nervous system that cannot find a strategy, and you offer the one thing neither strategy was ever given. A calm, unhurried, unfrightened presence that stays. The Circle of Security research, one of the most rigorously evaluated attachment interventions in the world, describes this as being bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. Not a formula, an orientation. The parent who is regulated enough and present enough to hold the child's distress without being destabilized by it. That holding, that steadiness, is the beginning of safety. And it is available in a scraped knee on an ordinary afternoon. Scene 2. The moment of conflict before. Your child does something wrong, you correct them. And what happens next is disproportionate. Either a complete shutdown, a dissociative blankness where they seem to go somewhere else entirely, or an explosive escalation that feels like you have triggered something far bigger than the correction warranted. You try to follow up. They are unreachable, or they are out of control. And you feel lost in the interaction because nothing you do seems to land the way it would with another child. What is actually happening? For a child with disorganized attachment, conflict with a caregiver is not just uncomfortable. It activates the original wound. The moment you move into correction, even calmly, even fairly, something in the child's nervous system reads the shift in your energy as threat, and the system that has no organized strategy fires again. Researchers who study disorganized attachment describe a pattern of hostile attribution bias in these children, a tendency to read ambiguous or neutral adult behavior as threatening. The calm correction looks, to this nervous system, like the beginning of something dangerous, not because the child is choosing this, because the nervous system learned it. After. You have learned to separate the correction from the relationship. Before any correction, you do something the research calls attunement, a brief, genuine acknowledgement of the child's state, not of the behavior, of the person behind it. You seem really frustrated right now. I can see that. And we need to talk about what just happened. That sequence. Seen first, then corrected, does something specific for the disorganized child that correction alone cannot do. It interrupts the threat response before it fully fires. It tells the nervous system, this person is not dangerous. This person sees me. and a nervous system that feels seen can stay present for a conversation that it would otherwise have fled or exploded from. The research on child-parent psychotherapy, a clinically validated intervention for disorganized attachment, identifies this attunement before correction sequence as one of its core mechanisms. The correction still happens, the boundary still holds, but the child is still in the room when it does. Scene 3. The ordinary moment before. Nothing is wrong. The day is calm. You are in the same room, and there is a distance between you and your child that you cannot fully account for. They are not upset. They are not acting out. They are simply elsewhere, contained in themselves in a way that keeps a certain amount of space between you, even when you are close. Interactions feel slightly guarded. Warmth approaches, and then something closes. You try to connect, and the connection almost happens, and then does not quite. You tell yourself, it is their personality, their introversion, their mood. What is actually happening? The ordinary calm moment is actually one of the most important moments for a child with disorganized attachment. Because this is when the nervous system, in the absence of immediate threat, is running a background prediction. Based on everything it has learned about whether closeness is safe, and the prediction it has been running, based on history, says be careful. Closeness is unpredictable. Stay partly here and partly elsewhere. Keep the door open but do not go fully in. That background vigilance is exhausting, and it is invisible, and it is exactly what is producing the distance you cannot explain. After. You have learned that ordinary calm moments are not wasted time between the important moments. They are the most important moments. Breaking the cycle of disorganized attachment requires establishing consistent caregiving routines that promote predictability. Predictability is the mechanism through which safety is built in a nervous system that has learned to expect the unpredictable. Not grand gestures, not special occasions. The same greeting every morning in the same warm tone. The same presence at the same point in the evening routine. The same response to the same small things day after day, accumulating into a body of evidence the child's nervous system cannot argue with. You are safe here. Nothing here will surprise you. The person in this room is the same persons were yesterday, and they will be the same person tomorrow. That evidence does not arrive in a single moment. It arrives through the texture of repeated ordinary ones. And it is the only thing powerful enough to rewrite a prediction that was written in the child's earliest experiences. Earned security. Developing a secure attachment orientation, despite starting out with disorganized attachment, involves a combination of self-awareness, healthy relationships, and consistent, therapeutic support. But it begins at home, in the ordinary moments, in the predictable presence of a parent who shows up the same way enough times that the nervous system slowly, cautiously begins to believe it. Through all 3 scenes: a scraped knee, a correction, an ordinary afternoon, 3 different moments. The same thing needed in all 3, not a technique, not a script. A regulated, predictable, non-frightening presence that does not disappear when things get hard, and does not change shape depending on its mood. That is what safety feels like to a child with disorganized attachment. Not warmth alone. Warmth can be unpredictable. Not firmness alone. Firmness can feel like threat. But the combination of the two, held consistently, over time, by a parent who has done enough of their own work to stay present in the difficult moments without flooding or withdrawing. The cycle of insecure attachment can be broken when parents gain insight into their own attachment history, work through unresolved trauma, and learn to respond sensitively to their children. This process is called earned security, and it creates a new relational blueprint for the next generation. You are that blueprint, not a perfect one, a consistent one. That is the whole work, and it is already happening every time you stay. If your child has disorganized attachment, if you have recognized in these 3 scenes something of your own home, the most important thing I can tell you is this: you are not trying to undo the past. You cannot. What you are doing is building enough new present that the past no longer has to be the loudest voice in the room. Get support if you need it. The circle of security, child-parent psychotherapy, and therapeutic parenting programs exist specifically for this work, and the research behind them is strong. You do not have to figure this out alone. But start in the ordinary moments. The scraped knee, the calm afternoon, the greeting that happens the same way every morning. Safety is not built in the dramatic moments. It is built in the repeated ones, and your child's nervous system is listening to every single one. Share this with a parent who is living this. Leave a comment telling me which of these 3 scenes felt most familiar. And stay with this series, because every attachment style has its own path forward, and none of them is a dead end. Until next time, stay present, stay predictable, stay. That is enough. That has always been enough.